I would say I'm seeing that many of the same things that my peers are seeing. Of course, 4K, which is not a fad. That's going to be here. We're going to see 4K. I think at the price points that it's at right now, too high really for anyone in digital signage to implement beyond the one-off situations. But networks of any scale probably can't afford 4K. But unlike 3D, which I've always maintained is kind of a gimmick and not real for digital signage, 4K is. I mean, just look, it went from 720p to 1080p. We're going to go to 4K. That's going to happen. So I wouldn't say that's new and exciting. It's cool. It's great to watch because it's so lifelike. And we're going to see that in digital signage in the next few years. I think there's no doubt. I've seen an interesting technology that extends the audio from the TV to your cell phone. So if you're in an environment, so if you're a digital signage operator and you have an environment that's particularly sensitive with sound, maybe you don't want to have the sound up, or maybe it's hard for people to hear, you can send that sound to someone's cell phone with almost no latency, and they can listen to it while they're watching. It's a niche technology, don't know if it's going to take off, but in the areas in which we work, that's something that's kind of cool. I think there's some obstacles with implementation right now. There's some hurdles you have to jump through to get it to work, but I think that the idea behind it is kind of interesting and perhaps solves a problem for some digital signage networks that use audio. So I thought that was kind of interesting. You're seeing a lot of talk about projection mapping, and of course a lot of discussion about video walls, and they keep evolving, becoming more affordable, and we're seeing some really interesting and unique implementations of video walls. I look for the small, simple things sometimes because a lot of times we're focused on really big, exciting things. But when you boil it down, a lot of networks can't afford the really cool, exciting things. And so I look sometimes for just really cool, interesting, functional technologies that enhance the viewer experience. And so I tend to focus on those sorts of things. I saw another product that interested me. An overlay that you can put over any screen to turn it into a touch screen, paired with a small media player, and the entire package is like $400. So I'm sure there are issues with it. I'm sure it has to be refined, but the concept there behind that, being able to turn any existing ordinary TV into an interactive screen for just a few $100s is a fairly compelling proposition. If you are looking to launch an ad-supported digital signage network, which is something I used to run, ad-supported digital signage network, which we sold last year, we're now more on the subscription side of the business, and we do managed services for other networks. But a lot of people come in to this show, say they want to start a new network, and often what they're talking about is an ad-supported network. And I think there are a lot of challenges with ad-supported networks. I think you can make it work. There are some success stories out there. But you have to do, it's just going to sound almost cliche, but you have to do your research. You have to really understand the market. Don't drink from the Kool-Aid. Go out there and talk to critics, to cynics, get a well-rounded perspective on what you're trying to do, and make sure that you are open to people, to naysayers. I talked to a gentleman yesterday from another country who's here, and he does digital signage in the retail space, and apparently he's done quite well with that. He's looking for other verticals. He's so happy and excited. He wants to go into other verticals, and healthcare is one that he wants to go into. So he was talking with me about this, and I don't know anything about the dynamics of his country and advertising in his country, but he asked me from my perspective on the US market. He had heard that healthcare networks can be wildly profitable. He was specifically referring to a session he had attended where there was a lot of happy talk. And I said, look, here's the reality. There are some companies done very well, but you have to know a lot about the market, about your market, who your advertisers going to be on your network in your country. In our country, healthcare networks, pharmaceutical companies are allowed to advertise directly to consumers. That's illegal in most of the world. And in our country, a lot of the dollars behind digital out-of-home and medical come from the pharmaceutical companies. So if that's not there, if that part of the equation isn't there in your country, where are your ad dollars going to come from in that network? So it's really to truly understand that you should not take the "we will build it, they will come" approach. You really do need to understand the dynamic of the advertising market in your vertical. And I would encourage, and I've been doing this lately with folks, is that I would get away from this idea that you provide everything to the venue for free. And I think increasingly my colleagues in the industry have recognized, we're all recognizing this, that you need to cover some of your operating expense with some commitment from the venue. They should have some skin in the game, not only to offset your costs, but also they're more concerned about the health of the network and that screen that's operating in their environment if they know that they're paying something to have it there. I think DSE is a must-attend for people who are in the digital signage business. I really think it's important from a number of perspectives. For me, over time, what I get out of it has changed. So in the beginning, when I started, I didn't really know much. And so for me, these sessions were very important. I learned a lot. And there are a lot of rookies who come here every year. And so that's all very important. As I've matured in the industry and developed relationships, it's really like a reunion. It's the annual reunion. And it's not just to go have some drinks, play some blackjack or poker. It's to tighten those bonds, discuss new projects, talk about the state of the industry, things that we can be doing to improve the health of digital signage. You kind of become sort of silly to say, but kind of like a senior citizen in the industry. It sounds silly when I've only been doing this 6 or 7 years, but that's really what happens. It evolves over time, and it's you really do learn a lot every year, even if you are not necessarily at the floor of your knowledge. You develop that knowledge. It's still worthwhile to come here, see the vendors. The exhibit hall is very important to see what's new, what's different, and if you're looking for a new technology or need to buy new screens or new media players, this is a one-stop shop to have an opportunity to touch and feel this equipment and not do all of your research remotely. I mean, I'm a video guy from, been in TV for 20 years and worked with sophisticated tools and terrific creative talent. But I'm going to put all that aside for a moment and talk about the substance of the content, not necessarily how it looks. I think that we have a challenge in our industry to provide content that is unique and different. What is it about that content that I can't get on readily, on my cell phone? A lot of networks will rely on news, weather, sports, other kind of canned feeds, and those have a place. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a place for that kind of content in digital signage, certainly, but that shouldn't form the foundation of your content. What should form the foundation of your content is what's unique to you and your venue. So I'm a big believer in data, using data from your organization. If you're a college campus and your class schedules, or you're a bar and restaurant and it's the specials of the day, or you can do really cool trivia with your system. Which beer has been the best-selling beer today at our bar? Corona, Bud Light, Dos Equis. Engage people in a way that they can't really be engaged by their phone, because you're providing information that's not readily available on the phone. Every day when I wake up in the morning, I check my phone for news, weather, sports before I walk out the door. I do it again if I have an appointment somewhere, I'm sitting and I'm waiting. I mean, I'm doing this multiple times a day, and I think most of us do that. So if you're providing the same information that is readily available on someone's smartphone, what's the reason for someone to look up at that screen? So I really do, lately have been really preaching this idea that you have to have content that's really special and unique to what you do and who you are, and that it's not something that people have already checked 3 or 4 times today. Well, I'm not really talking about one-to-one so much as I'm talking about information that's unique to that environment. So again, I use and this is a very basic example, but like flight schedules. Okay, I mean, we expect that you go to the airport, you have a monitor that has flight schedules. That's a very important purpose that serves. It's somewhat difficult to get that information on your phone. I mean, airlines have the apps and all that, but let's face it, you walk into the airport, it's just easier to look up the bank of monitors, right? That's something very old, been around a long time, but it's just an example of only the airport has that, right? That's where that information resides. It's very specific to what's going on in that environment. So that's really what I'm talking about, is using information on the screens. And it can be much more creative and fun, and should be, and that's just a very basic example. But the idea here is that you use data, your internal data, and information and images and video, things that are unique to your organization. And that's what you use to drive the content on the screen. I think the biggest challenge for our industry is this idea that we are either in competition with the smartphone, or we find a way to work collaboratively with the smartphone and the tablet. And there are a lot of efforts going on. Every year we talk about NFC and other Bluetooth and other technologies to somehow connect the smartphone with the TV. I mean, digital signage display. How do we connect those two so maybe you can, there's an ad for something on a digital signage screen and then a coupon is pushed to your phone. That's an example of the two of them working together. And I think we can do that, but I think that on the challenge end of this, the challenge is, again, how do we get people to look away from the smartphone or the tablet and to notice the digital screen of the interactive kiosk? What is it about that that is compelling enough to peel my eyes away from the smartphone? And I think that continues to be among the challenges. Pricing used to be one of the big challenges in digital, and I just, with the pricing of equipment coming down so much, especially media players, I mean, it's significantly less expensive. It's half the cost today to deploy what I deployed 5 or 6 years ago. It's less than half of the cost, maybe 30% of the cost to deploy that. So I don't think cost is as big of a challenge. I do think cost as it relates to ongoing management of a network, that hasn't really changed. And the cost of content, ongoing content creation, that is a challenge, which is where really live data and using your own internal mechanisms can really help, because you own that information. You don't have to pay anyone for that information, you own it. So it's very scalable. The problem, I think, with large companies, the history of large companies getting involved with digital science has not been pretty. And I think part of it is that for those guys, it's a very small market. It's a tiny fraction, and it's difficult for it ever to be more than that, because digital signage is not a one-to-one relationship like a smartphone, right? If every person owns their own smartphone. You don't share it with 5 or 6 other people, or 10 people, or 20 people. The digital signage screen is shared with multiple people, so there aren't as many screens necessary. So, I think it'll be interesting to see what the entry of Google into the space does for innovation. Maybe it spurs some innovation. I don't know. I just, if I were a software vendor, I don't know that I'd be necessarily worried about competing with Google, because I think, Google has to make so much money. A public company, there's expectations of growth, and that growth I don't think can come for them from an area like digital signage. So, it'll be interesting to see what kind of effect. I'm hoping it'll have a positive effect in innovation. That would be my hope.